Exit 12 is not affiliated with any 12-step group or outside organizations. The purpose of this podcast is for informational and educational purposes only. No person or organization is receiving any monetary gain from the recording, production, or distribution of this podcast. All hosts and guests are participating of their own free will and are only sharing their own personal experiences. Subjects discussed in this podcast may be triggering for some individuals. Listeners' discretion advised. Welcome to Exit 12. I'm your host, Brian Fields, and as always, I am joined by my co-host, Michelle and Isaac.
Whoop, whoop.
What up? Today we have another very special guest. I feel like our guest list has just been phenomenal.
Superstar guest list.
Superstars.
Oh, yeah.
Odessa.
Yay! President of our youth board of directors, Odessa.
Yeah.
Not a big deal.
Yeah.
Rocking life, Odessa. Just killing the game.
Killing it.
So proud of you.
Doing amazing, dude.
So proud of you. If you are a youth in need of services, you can come to my house, 300 North Willow Street, Monday through Friday, 9 to 5:30, or you can give us a call at 907-373-4357. So, here we are. Episode 3.
Step 3.
Guess what?
Uh-oh. Oh, no. Brian, is it going to start getting tough? Because I was fine when we were just talking about it.
Guess what? We're in some action stages.
Oh,
of
no.
the steps.
No, wait.
Yeah. Yes.
Oh, dear.
Yes. So, we've gone over step 1.
Uh-huh. We admitted we had a problem.
We admitted we had a problem. We went over step 2. We admitted we were crazy.
Mm-hmm. We were crazy.
And
Higher
now,
power could take it away. Take away the crazy.
Yeah. And now we are making a decision. I'm not good at decisions.
Oh, no.
I'm not good at decisions.
Then I have to do something, Brian.
To turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understand him.
But what does that even mean,
And what's
Brian?
so interesting about this step is like, this is where you first see God in the steps. And this is the step where everybody's like, it's like those like little guppies on Nemo, swim away.
We have a lot of Nemo references
I
in
know.
here.
Yeah, for sure. I loved that movie. I'm sorry.
Same.
Yeah. So, yeah, let's get right into what does it mean? What does it look like? My first question for all of you is, what does step 3 mean to you personally, and how has it shaped your recovery and your journey?
So, step 3 was super hard for me, dude.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was definitely the swim away guppy for a long time. When I first got into the rooms and started to learn about recovery, I considered myself agnostic. I didn't know what I really believed. I didn't know what could be out there. I'd been atheist at one point in my life. I was not ready to admit to myself that I was not in control of my life to an extent. And, you know, not that my decisions or my control had gotten me very far.
Yeah.
But it took a lot of hardship and a lot of me and my ideas driving myself into the ground again and again and again for me to really decide to turn my will and my life over. And that term in general baffled me. Like, I couldn't understand how that works. What does it mean to turn my will and my life over to a higher power of any kind? Isn't it me making my decisions? I wake up every morning when I want to get up. I put on the clothes that I want to put on. I work the job I want to work. Like, what does it mean to do that? And I fought with that for a long time. And I don't know. It just, I don't know. I think what it means to me today is the simple action of God's ideas are better than mine. And so long as I wake up and I ask for his will to be done, not mine, which is taught in the big book, it's taught in the program, and then just take the next right indicated action, which for me means if it's not going to lead to harming myself or other people, then it's probably the right choice. And then just go with that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for me too, it was that, you know, like, again, I was very sick when I first came into the rooms, like just a crazy person. And how step 1, 2, and 3 was for me was I can't, he can, I think I'll let him.
I mean, that's pretty succinct.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
Well, we'll see you next week.
Yeah, there you go, buddy.
Thanks for stopping in, Odessa. You didn't know we were going to take care of this in 5 minutes. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah, but like what it means to me personally is just that, like, the big part that I didn't understand, like a lot of like, okay, so like when I first encountered the step, a lot of what I did was I just like went with it, whether I like truly in my heart believed it or not. And a lot of times I was like, yeah, okay, sure, I'll turn my will over. I'm still gonna do what I want to do.
That doesn't sound like turning your will over at all.
Yeah, sure
right?
doesn't. No. You know, and so like when I first encountered the step, it was kind of just like a going through the motion, and as I've grown in my recovery, I've kind of come to understand the whole purpose of the step, of this, you know, kind of attaching to step 2 of, you know, like my best thoughts have got me nowhere, right? Like, you know, some of my best thoughts were like, I have a drug test today, and so I'm going to buy fake pee, but I don't know how to microwave. So I'm going to put this plastic bag in the oven and then tape it to my leg, but it's now hot and melting to my leg. And then I get to the job and the drug test is a mouth swab.
Oh my.
Yeah, you know what I mean? So for me, it really comes down to that. And the part that I really like emphasize today is that as we understood him, you know, and that was the part that like I discarded when I first did it. I just thought you wanted me to be like some God-loving church boy. And that's not at all what they want from you. You know what I mean? But I think if you can get past the idea of just, you know, I'm a Sunday service every day, like praising God, I think you can get through it.
I know Michelle is reading, and I don't want to stop her from getting there, but that does raise a question of, so what if that is not the point as you understand it, then what does that look? Obviously, it's going to look different for everyone, but what does that look like? What's the underlying
so like
cause?
Like, are you saying like as we understood him part?
Yeah.
So like for me, like I am more of a, you know, like the times that I felt the most presence from God is like when I'm in nature, or, you know, like I've been to Sundances before, which is like a Native American practice, right? Where, you know, there's songs and praying to a tree and all this stuff that ground you to a creator and all of this stuff. And so that is the part, right? As we understood him, of not necessarily like as everybody has like portrayed him to you.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So it's I kind of touched on it at the last podcast where, like, you know, like some people will make their sponsor their God, right? Or people in the program, as they understand him, you know, or people will pray to a mountain, or they'll have a hippie dude in their passenger seat that they envision, you know, call him their guy, you know. What are we doing today, guy?
Every time you say that, I'm imagining the guy from that 70s show that runs the photo booth. Like, I'm only seeing Cheech, but like sober Cheech. No, I think is it
I don't know.
Anyway,
it's one of the guys.
Sorry, not to derail us.
Willie Nelson.
It's Willie Nelson.
Not to derail it. Okay, so not to discount one person's recovery versus another. But if the point that you're raising is that if you are not finding a method of surrendering to that higher power, if it is not a higher power as you understand him, you're not going to be successful because you are not feeling authentic in that moment.
Absolutely. So for me, in my experience, right, like when I started to, I wouldn't say started, like I decided that the higher power of my understanding was going to be this goddess of my understanding, that I started to imagine, like my sponsor had the whole saying of, you could pray to a rock, you could pray to a doorknob, but the doorknob's going to turn on you, all sorts of things. And so I was like, okay, cool. I don't like the idea of a sky daddy, so I'm going to roll with this chick over here, and it's going to be a goddess of my understanding.
Sky daddy.
Well, I wasn't cool with that, so.
Yeah.
But, it's just, but then it worked for a little bit, and it only worked for a little bit, and I started to manage and control and my addictive traits or my behaviors. What they say is the problem. It's not that drinking was the problem. The thing that's the problem is between my ears, which is my brain, and I just started to overthink it the entire time. Until eventually I was like, this isn't even working. There's nothing, I have nothing to base this off of. I have nothing to go on. And I intellectualized the whole thing, and I just, I ended up relapsing because I didn't have that spiritual connection. I didn't have that purpose. I didn't have that, what am I going to pray to? Because that's a huge part of the program, is no matter what that spiritual connection looks like for you, you have to be solid in it. It doesn't matter what your support is, it's a spiritual program. It doesn't matter if it's that tree or if it's that mountain or if it's that something. You have to be strong within your belief, and I wasn't.
Yeah.
And
So you were. It also doesn't mean that you're creating your own God.
Yes.
Because what I'm hearing you say is, you created this God, I guess goddess in this case, in your mind, and because it was you creating that and not you coming to an understanding of a higher power that just is, there's no, when you've come to that understanding of that higher power, there's no room for any of your interpretations. The God is what he is in.
Well, okay. So, yes and no.
I hear myself saying, and I'm like, well, no, that's not quite right. But you were manifesting aspects of part of the problem into your higher power rather than just coming to an understanding of that higher power is what I'm trying to say.
What you're missing is it's as we as a people, right? We as a group, we as a collective, right? And so when I first got clean in preparation for the step, my sponsor had me read pages 60 through 63 every freaking day for like 3 months.
Yep.
Every day. And what it talks about in that passage really is just about like, you're stupid. like you have bad ideas, right? And there is a God of our understanding that whether what you visualize that God as, what you and whatever that is to you, we all understand and agree that like they know better than we do, essentially.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
So we is doing the heavy lifting in that sentence almost.
Yeah, so like they kind of they lay like the framework for you of like what God is, and then you fill in where whatever makes you feel comfortable.
Yeah, and I would like to preface, it's not that just because it was my idea that was the reason it didn't work. That was my own experience. There are some people that, have 20 plus years sober, and that's what their understanding is. It's not a known God or deity that is in normal religions, you could say. And that works for them. That's great. But for me and my own, like he was saying, we're stupid. And what it also says in 60 to 63 is that we're control freaks that are neurotic, and we just need to let it go and give it to somebody. And he's completely right. You know, Brian's saying that the weight is the we understand him. So
Okay, so the what that higher power looks like isn't necessarily important, but the framework is important.
Yeah, like and that's where people get confused, and where they're just like, okay, well, my God is this. Like, I've had people say, like, my God is my subconscious, and I'm like,
your subconscious. Okay, I'll let you say this.
I feel like there's going to be some problems there. You know, and so like when you don't have that framework of what that looks like and what it looks like to have a God of our understanding,
right?
That's where you miss, and what Odessa I think is trying to say, that's where you miss that spiritual connection, right? When you make it from the ground up and it's this dude like that, or a doorknob or a rock that does nothing, you know what I mean? Like,
it's like fan fiction at that point. It's not, there's no,
and then at the end of the day, that's your will, not
right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah. And I think, you know, people often mistake religion with spirituality, and it's not the same thing, you know. Religion is like based on rules, and you have to do this and you have to do that. And spirituality is like, you know, having that relationship with a higher power.
Yeah.
And having that connection and everything.
Yeah.
For sure. So when you guys, so how did you interpret the idea of turning your will over in like a practical sense, especially when like in the context of addiction? What did that look like for you? Not you, obviously. Sorry. Normie.
Yeah.
See you later, buddy. Skip to question D.
Well, this
you answered no to question 2.
This seems like way harder when you really get down to it than it looks like on paper. Because I know that some steps coming up, there's going to be actual homework that comes with it.
Yeah.
But this is a decision that, like, everything else is contingent on, it seems like, from what my understanding of the steps looks like. And it also, if you really are being true to it, is it's not easy for anyone to give up control.
Do you have the step 3 prayer?
I do. I actually try to read it every morning.
Can you read that for us? I think that will kind of lay the framework of this question and how to.
So the step 3 prayer, oftentimes our sponsors will tell us that we need to do that every single morning. And that's pretty much giving that.
Did you have an opinion on that?
It just makes me mad. It made me so mad. You know, it's like in Nugent's ranch on this freaking concrete floor with my twin bed, like, okay, here we go.
Yeah.
Not believing a single word I was saying, but like I was following the action. So anyways, yeah.
So it's, God, I offer myself to thee to build with me and to do with me as thou wilt. Relieve me of the bondage of self, that I may better do thy will. Take away my difficulties, that victory over them may bear witness to those I would help of thy power, thy love, and thy way of life. May I do thy will always. God, take my will in my life, guide me in my recovery, show me how to live. Amen.
Amen.
Is that the NA one?
No, it's the AA.
That's the full AA one from the 12 and 12.
Showing you something you never saw before, Brian?
No. I just thought the take my will in my life, guide me in my recovery, and show me how to live was
Clean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought that was NA.
It's not specific, but
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And so,
The more you know.
yeah.
Very King James Version.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so like I think what that is like preferencing is like, again, you know, really about like getting out of oneself. And like when you think about turning your will over, it doesn't mean just like, geez, take the wheel. I'm out. You know? Yeah. Like you still have to, there's still footwork that you have to do, right? But I think it's more about, like, if I was brand new talking to somebody, it's more about just stop trying to control every aspect of your life and allow things to happen and see where they go, and don't like spin out, because I do. I mean, and I still do sometimes, where it's just like I get stuck in this thought, and I'm just like, well, what if this happens? And what if that happens? Well, I can't control what if that happens, right?
I would, with that, I would love to read a little bit of 60 to 63, if you're cool with that.
Yeah, for sure.
To kind of give the listeners an idea of what we're talking about and what it's like as far as being in the mind of an addict or an alcoholic.
Listen up, Isaac.
Turn those ears on.
All right.
You get the full experience here.
Oh, look, pick up where you left off, 60 to 63, because my sponsor also makes me read it. All right, so,
Some Jeopardy music. Look at Isaac just like intently
do.
waiting.
I'm waiting. I'm ready.
Like, I'm here.
All right, so the beginning of 60 to 63 is essentially the first requirement is that we have to be convinced that any life run on self-will, so us being us, can hardly be a success. On the basis, we are almost always in collision with something or somebody, even though our motives are good. Most people try to live by self-propulsion. Each person is like an actor who wants to run the whole show. It's forever trying to arrange the lights, the ballet, and the scenery, and the rest of it, the players in his own way. If his arrangements would only stay put, if people would only do as he wished, the show would be great. Everybody, including himself, would be pleased. Life would be wonderful. In trying to make these arrangements, our actor can be sometimes quite virtuous. He may be kind, considerate, patient, generous, or even modest or self-sacrificing. On the other hand, he may be mean, egotistical, selfish, and dishonest. But as with most humans, he is likely to have varied traits. So I think that that's anybody.
Yeah.
It's not just it's not just addicts or alcoholics. I mean, we all try to show up in a certain way. But I think it's what I like about step 3 is that it starts to show us what the solution is. And it goes into more detail of what that really looks like. It starts to, our actor is self-centered, egocentric, as people like to call it nowadays. He's like the retired businessman who lulls in the Florida sunshine in the winter, complaining of the sad state of the nation. The minister who sighs over the sins of the 20th century. Politicians and reformers are sure all would be utopia if the rest of the world would only behave. The outlaw safecracker who thinks society has wronged him. And the alcoholic who is lost all and is locked up. Whatever our protestations, are not most of us concerned with ourselves, our resentments, and our self-pity, selfishness, and self-centeredness that we think is the root of our troubles. So.
I relate with that because
We're done.
if everyone would just do things the way that I need them to, then it would all be right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
but in all seriousness, yeah, I mean, how often do we all have that thought of just, why can't this person just do it the way that I would do it? If that was the case, then we wouldn't be having this problem.
Right.
But if you lived one day in a world where every single person was the exact same as you, you would be living in a dystopian nightmare.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Like the SpongeBob episode where they're all normal. They're like, "Hi, nice weather we're having today."
Yes. Yeah.
Good reference.
I really love that reading because like I'm a visual person, and like when I read that, well, when I first read it, I was just like reading words and nothing was really sinking. It took like 3 months for it to like really sink in what it was trying to say to me, because I was like, I don't understand why I'm reading this. I'm not selfish.
I do so many things for
But when
everybody
I
else.
when I finally was like in a place where I could like internalize the reading, you know, that visualization of, you know, a director or something just sitting there like, you know, you've seen that Matt Damon on Entourage where he's like cussing the crap out of that dude. He's like, "Can't you just get it right?" And I'm like, oh man, I've definitely been there. You know what I mean? And that really helped me understand of like, okay, yeah, bro, you are like selfish and just super, super duper controlling. You know what I mean? So And I think too, when you look at, the turning our will over, like I said, like there's still some actions that have to take place, right? Like it's not just like a get out of decisions free card, like you still have to put the work in. And I think for me, like I practice those little things by just when I'm presented with like something new or something that's changing, right? Rather than sitting there and being like, oh my God, well, what if this happens? What if that happens? Like, it's really more of just like, okay, well, this is what's going to happen. So let's see where this goes. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And for me, like, that's how, it makes like how I would explain it to somebody new and like that practical sense of it's not necessarily just like your whole life and everything you do is like, hey God, can I take a right step or a left step? You know what I mean? It's more of like just kind of letting go of that control.
Yeah. I think for me, it's like letting go of the expectations, having expectations for everything. And I think that oftentimes gets me in a rut, because I think my sponsor, she told me, she was like, when you have expectations, you set yourself up for failure, because it's not going the way that you anticipated, you know? And, I think also learning the art of detachment is a beautiful thing. And oftentimes, our sponsors, will recognize that, and we're talking to them about certain things that are happening in our lives or whatever. And we end up in that like selfish self-centeredness, and we're trying to control the outcome of everything. And they'll be like, okay, I think you should go over your step 3 again. Yep.
My sponsor.
That's a FU in the sponsor.
So my sponsor's FU to me is your self will run riot. And every time she tells me that, I'm just like, you know what? I'll talk to you in a week.
I love her so much.
Right, dude? That's awesome.
Man. And there's stuff like that too, where like it really like was shown to me, like the self-pity and like the things that I do and how much I live in self-pity, right? Like I remember the first time, so when I was in treatment, one of my friends had committed suicide. And this was a gentleman who was loved and adored by everybody in our community. But he battled with addiction. And at that time, like I didn't really understand treatment and trying to be in recovery. Like I said, like I have never really thought that just getting sober would solve my problems. And there's another example of my will, right? But I remember going to my sponsor and saying, I feel so bad. He tried to get sober, and every time he'd come back to town, I'd be like, yo, let's go to the bar. And hey, I got some money for some dope. Let's go get some dope. And I really fed the addiction rather than supporting the recovery, and I felt like terrible. And he looked at me and he said, don't you dare make this about you. And I was like, bro, I was so mad. Who the are you, bro? Like, what do you mean don't make this about me? Like, this is all about me. This is my show, right?
Yeah.
And he just explained it to me. He just said, that's somebody's son that they lost today. That's somebody's brother, somebody's significant other. This has nothing to do with you. And the more you make it about you, the further away you're going to get from your recovery. And I was like,
dang.
Bro. And I use that all the time because we still lose people in addiction. And I encourage people, don't make this about you, right? Do not make this about you, because that's when you get back into those selfish, self-centered, self-pity type of headspaces. You know what I mean? Yeah. So. What daily practices or habits help you guys maintain the mindset of step 3 in your life today?
I'm hearing a lot of people going back and reading this over and over again.
Well, reading that step 3 prayer every day for me, and I've noticed, when I don't read that prayer every morning, I am mentally, emotionally not okay, and I'm just like, like nothing's going right for me today, and then like I think about it, I'm like, oh shoot, I didn't didn't pray this morning, and then I'll pull it out and I'll read it, and I think that's something that I try to commit to every morning, and then also like checking myself, I think that's a huge thing too, like checking myself. Am I being selfish right now? Am I being egotistical right now? And I think that's a huge thing for me.
Yeah.
Going into that 10th step.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
No spoilers.
No.
Well,
Well, some spoilers.
We'll get there.
yeah, I think for me, I realistically do not read that every day. I don't. No. Absolutely not.
Sorry. I've read it 100 times.
Right? I mean, I really should, because it's about habit. It's about, discipline. It's about those things. But I think on a daily basis, what I try to do when I notice my feathers are getting ruffled, when I notice that my control issues are coming out, I just try to remember God's will be done, not mine. And then I just walk away. Or, I'll say the serenity prayer in my head until I can let that go. And AA or 12-step programs in general treatment, they have trained me to do the things when I start to notice myself getting in front of everybody's way and preventing anything good from happening, because I think that I have great ideas. I take a step back and I let God kind of run the show. Because I'm not a great director. So
yeah, for sure. I think, I don't remember the last time, I got on my knees and did the prayer or read the passage. But I hold that value in my life daily. And I think for me, when I see these things, it is a lot of that like inventory of, taking a look back at my day and saying, are you trying to be controlling again? Are you trying to do this again? And a lot of times what it looks like for me is like, if things are getting loud in here, I'll go get in my truck, turn the radio off, drive, and I say these words every time. God, I don't know where we're going, but I trust you, and I will do what needs to be done. And that's all I say. And there is such a relief felt across my entire body. The tension gets lower. The shoulders aren't as tight. You know what I mean? And for me, it's more of like those type of things, and taking those minutes to stop, pause. This dude at the ranch, his name was Lapaka. He's so awesome. He'd be like, "You got a pee-pee, brother." I was like, "What?" He said he would say, "You got a pee-pee on yourself, my man." I'm like, I don't want to do that. But what he was trying to say is you need to pause and pray. You need to pause and pray.
Yeah, it gives you that reset. Yeah. And that is comforting. It's not comforting. What I'm not hearing is that thought of, well, whatever's going to happen's going to happen, bro.
Yeah.
It's more like, all right, I'm going to, like, I trust you to put me where I need to be.
Yeah.
that part.
And I'm going to do whatever I can to fulfill that will. I'm going to do I'm going to do the next right thing.
Yep.
Right. And I'm going to keep doing the next right thing and keep doing the next right thing. And I'm trusting that I'm going to arrive to a place where I'm supposed to be based off of that.
Yeah.
And that's really comforting, because all you have to do is just do the next right thing.
Right.
And do the next right thing. And you can have faith that if you continue to do that, you're going to end up exactly where you're supposed to be, exactly when you're supposed to be there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. How has your guys' relationship with yourself and others changed as a result of step 3?
Oh, majorly.
Right.
So before I started to actually, I guess, devote myself to the program and devote myself to God and all the things, not only would I try to nitpick myself, I wouldn't even say try to, I would nitpick myself and everybody around me. I was super judgmental, super like in my head all the time. Everyone had to see me a certain way. I had to see everybody else a certain way. And if you didn't show up that way, how dare you get out of my life? Or my people pleaser side would come out, and I would try to be everything that they needed from any one person. Like however they needed to be, I would be it, even if it went against every fiber of my being. And in turning my will and my life over, I've gotten to allow myself to be who I'm meant to be. I've gotten to see myself for who I am. I've gotten to accept myself for who I am. And I've gotten to just not have to deal with that insanity. And I love that. It is so genius on how the steps are written. It is so amazing. It really is, because you have to have that insanity removed before you can make that clear-cut decision with God to turn your will and your life over. Because if you're still in that insanity, you're not going to be able to make that decision. Mm-hmm. And that was true for me. When I was still in my obsession and my addiction, I could not make that decision, not consciously. It was always 911 prayers, help me, help me, help me. But, you know, the next morning, hangover is gone. Where's the next bottle? Whatever. Yeah. And, you know, then the shame cycle would start. And I heard you talking about that in the other podcast, and I love that you brought that up, because it's absolutely true. It feeds all of our everything. Mm-hmm. But yeah, no, I get to see me for me today, and I get to see people for people today. And I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
So I think for me it's very similar to that too. You know, I was just talking to someone the other day about how I used to be, you know, when I became my house the first time, I used to have panic attacks in the bathroom. Because I was learning how to set boundaries and everything. And, you know, I was always people pleasing and everything. And when I was setting those boundaries, people would be like, oh, you're so selfish and blah, 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 this and that. And I would start having panic attacks because I'm not pleasing their needs, you know? And then I was also like super insecure, and, you know, like I was just talking to someone about, like, I was, trying to go to prom, and I got my makeup done. It took like 3 hours, and I showed up a little late, and I was waiting for my friends to come out because I was afraid to go inside. And I ended up crying off all my makeup because I was so afraid for people to see me, you know? And now I'm like more confident, and I get to show up differently, and I'm more secure in my foundation. Yeah. And, you know, like you're saying, like, we're completely insane. Yeah. And that's pretty much like what you're saying too. Yeah. You know, you wake up and your head's just going 100 miles an hour, and that's just the insanity. And then having this step and giving our will and our lives over to a higher power of our own understanding, you know, it's, you know, the art of detachment. You know, I don't have this under control, and, I'm just going to see where it goes. You know, I'm going to see where it leads me. And it's, my life now is like, and I think oftentimes, you know, we're human. We go back to our old ways all the time and everything. But like right now, like it just feels so, like I feel so relieved and content and peace with my life right now, you know, because, I'm detaching. I'm not trying to control the outcome. I'm not trying to force things. It's like putting a square peg into a round hole, you know?
My sponsor tells me that all the time.
Yeah. And so it's completely different now, and I don't have to have that fear of people looking at me, and I could be my authentic self, you know? And although sometimes when I'm at podium meetings and I get called up and talk in front of everyone, sometimes that fear comes back. But.
Yeah. Yeah. I think those are both awesome. I think for me, it's allowed me to, like, as far as my relationship with myself, it's allowed me to be easier on myself, know, and really take into account that my failures aren't failures, right? They're lessons. Mm-hmm. And I remember being in a really bad spot just a couple of years ago. I was unemployed, you know, I didn't have anybody. My son's across the country, just moved to Florida. And I'm like, I was in a depressive state for like a month and a half. And I was just sitting there in my apartment one day, and I was like, all right, again, I don't know where we're going. Mm-hmm. But if I take a second and I look back at my life, you know, my entire life of, you know, I was, you know, given up for adoption, which I hated, right? But I was given into a family that struggled with their own stuff, but it ended up in a family that has like 5 of us in recovery today. You know what I mean?
It's really cool.
And that work a program. And I don't necessarily know if I would have went to a different family, because there's a family in New York, I guess, that was thinking about adopting me. And so like, I don't know if I went to that family, if like that same thing would have happened and I would have been able to find recovery. And I started like looking at my life, and you know, when I got out of treatment, everything fell in place. I got a job at my house to pay my gas. I was in school. Carl gave me the job that I've always dreamed of, you know, like all of this stuff kept falling into place. And I was just looking, and I was like, you know, all my life, things have, whether I've tried to or not, at some point in time after I've, you know, done my whole deal and run stuff into the ground, like the next thing pops up, right? And somehow I'm taken care of. And, you know, I just said, okay, we're going to do that. And then you fast track to today and where I'm at today, and I'm like doing my dream job and getting to work with people in capacities that I never thought was possible, and being asked to open a 3.1 residential treatment center, you know. I have an 8th grade education. That's the highest grade I ever completed. Like, I never would have dreamed in a million years that this is where I would be. And for me, I know that that wasn't just me. Mm-hmm. I didn't just do that, you know. And so it's gave me this peace that I value. We did a values thing the other day with the kids in DJJ, and my top 2 values, one of them is peace, you know, because from this step, and it wasn't just this step, it's the steps that come after it, has given me a peace that I will not give back. I refuse. Yeah. You know? And so it's really, having that peace has really resulted in a different relationship with my friends and my family, where I'm not so critical of other people. Mm-hmm. It's allowed me to be a better boss. It's allowed me to be a better husband. It's allowed me to be a better brother, father, all of those type of things. So I am very grateful for the steps, and this step particularly, and getting to a point where I can make that decision.
And I definitely love that you bring up, it's, you know, when life started to get hard, like you knew what to do. Yeah. You knew to say, hey, I don't know where we're going. Right. And I had a similar experience. Like after I had my relapse and my goddess didn't work anymore, you know, I had my own come to Jesus, I guess you could say, where I was like, okay, well, what I'm doing is not working. So turning my will and my life over, and those things started to fall into place, and I got to come back here and I got to do the things. And now I'm also doing the things that I couldn't have imagined. Yeah, good. Killer stuff. Not at all. And I know that that's not because of me. I know it's not because of my choices. I did not think that I was going to make it past 21, 23, 24. Yeah. If it worked out that way. And I know that it's because I let God into my life. Mm-hmm. And, you know, like Michelle also talked about, I like to take the reins back a lot without realizing it. You know, it's not one day I wake up and I'm just like, okay, God, you've done enough. You can take a back seat. I'm gonna
I got it from here, buddy.
Yeah. But I can also acknowledge when I have done that, because then I start to get really uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. My life gets hard again. I'm starting to get, and life's going to be hard, right? That's just how it is. Yeah. But my level of acceptance, my level of tolerance, my level of patience changes, whether or not I have, if I'm giving that will over. So,
yeah. Yeah. I think, you know, like in the book, it talks about, like, you know, it's not going to be great all the time, mm-hmm. you know, and I could relate with that too. I was just in a meeting last Thursday, and I shared about, I think this is like kind of like on topic, mm-hmm. and I said something about when I pray to God, like you know, the 911 prayers or whatever, and then he gives me an answer. Mm-hmm. He gives me an answer, and I'm not happy with it. You know? And so that's when I'm like, okay, I got this. I have this under control. I can do it. You know, you didn't give me what I wanted. And then it ends up in flames. Yeah. Yeah. For sure.
Is that like one of those don't pray for patience because you'll be given an opportunity to be patient
Yeah.
type
Absolutely.
of deals?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. All right. What would you guys tell a newcomer that is maybe having some reservation about taking this step?
So when I was struggling taking that step, I had a friend of mine from the rooms give me this, I wouldn't say story, but asked me this question. He was like, okay, so imagine 3 frogs are sitting on a log. The 3 frogs made a decision to jump into the lake. How many frogs are still in the log?
0 frogs? Wait, 3 frogs. The
3
3 frogs made a decision to jump into the lake.
It's 3.
All 3 frogs are still in the log. They only made the decision. I can make the decision to let's see, go to the gym tomorrow. And then tomorrow morning comes around, I'm not going to the gym because I changed my mind. So it's all about having that that understanding that just because you make that decision, it doesn't mean that your whole life's going to change in 1 second. And that for me gave me the understanding that, okay, I can make that decision and it doesn't have to be all this change all at once, because that's what I was scared about, because I was scared of letting go of that control. So if it was just a little bit at a time, then that was more palatable for me.
Yeah.
I think, like if with that, I think people, like we kind of mentioned this in the last podcast where, you know, like it's not, you're putting all your eggs in one basket, right? You know, it's not like we're just like, here you go. And, but it's like, you know, slowly, a slow process of like, okay, here's 1, here's 2. And then eventually you'll have that detachment, you know, not having expectations. And although we're human, so it comes back every once in a while.
Every time.
Yeah, for sure. And that's exactly what I was going to say is just, you know, the first time I did this step, all I did was make a decision, you know, and it was a decision of like, sure, yeah, let's do it. Not like there's no blood oath or you know what I mean? Anything like that. And it's been a process. That's what I love about the 12 steps, right? Like, you know, I've mentioned in the past, I've had people with fancy degrees tell me all about Brian and what he needs to do. And then they put me in a program and I graduate that program. And then what? Right? There is no graduation from the 12 steps. It is a constant way to live my life and something that I can continuously go back to. And if I feel like I've missed something, I can go back and work those steps, right? And so when I got out of the ranch, like I had worked the steps at the ranch, and then I got out of the ranch and I worked the steps again, and then I did it again, right? Like, and so each time, like it's a process, you know, we don't just read a couple pages, say a prayer, boom.
I'm healed.
Yeah. And maybe you do. Some people are a little closer to God when they come here, when they come to these points. And so it's a little bit easier for them. But I know for me, it wasn't. And it's been a process. It's been a few year process, not necessarily something that I figured out in my first 6 months, 90 days, you know, whatever. And so just be easy on yourself, and we're not going to be perfect. And like everybody here has said multiple times, there's still points and times where we take our will back and we try to do it our way. But it's really about laying that framework and learning the steps you need to take so that your feet are trained, and you know, like when all else has failed, it's like, okay, I know what I need to do next. You know what I mean? Type of deal. So awesome. All right. Thank you.
I hear the next step's really fun.
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
I mean,
I can't wait.
It's my favorite.
you know what I think's funny is that everyone freaks out about 4, but it's really 5.
Yeah. Yeah. 1,000%. And that just shows that, you know, we still have kind of not really turned our will over by the resistance that we have in step 4. And that's what I tell. Anyway, we'll get into it. It'll be a whole
1,
thing.
2, and 3 is about acceptance.
Yeah, that's all the time that we have today. Thank you again, Odessa, for being here. You're an amazing rock star.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, stay tuned. Step 4 coming next.
Heck yeah.
Boom.